Hello Tech Genius, I am Ravi. Have you ever imagined a place where learning is as dynamic as the technology shaping your world? Then here's a deal. With iMatix, you can make sure the learning is exciting, impactful right from the beginning. You have interactive sessions with expert-led courses. In the world of tech, from data science to cloud computing, it's not just about a session, it's about doing, building, learning by solving real problems. So let's get started. We have seen the results that are involved in the localizing, which typically localizes the application into different locales or different geographies. This again increases the customer base for our application. In order to cater for different regions or different geographies, we tend to go for localization. And this is not something we do on a daily basis. Definitely not. This is probably a one-time or a two-time task whenever you are looking for a release or for an expansion or something. This is not something we do on a daily basis, the localization part. And we have also seen the localized rule sets and how the localization is going to work and all. Today we'll talk about data pages. One of the key important aspects of PEGA is your data pages. Using the data page, it says have a reduced number of DB hits. Instead of hitting the DB multiple times, we get all the data onto the DB page, and as and when it is required, we would be using it on the case. This is like an on-demand data retrieval that happens from the DB page, and we have different scopes for it. We have restrictions on who can access it or who can change it and all. We'll be looking at that. And once you start creating a DB page, we have a lot of other details coming in inside it. We just log into the application. The other day I was not able to log in, remember. Then I had to go back to my administrator at the red figure account and I had to change the operator's rule set instances. Only then I was able to. Yes, go ahead with creating data types and decays. I think I'll go ahead and create one more. We're going to the cards directly. Yes, Three data pages are being created: single, list, and single. These three are going to be the default, the pages created. But as per the requirement, we can go ahead, create more data types with different configurations. Yes, we have got the pages created along with the pages. We have a database table that's created at the backend for the data type. All those fields that we've added, they turned out to be columns and a mapping rule which maps the property on the PEGA side to the column on the DB side. There's a report definition rule, 3 pages, single, list, and same. Close this. Now I would like to add in some records here. This is going to be a system of records where the records live with PEGA internal to it. There can be other sources also, like my data could be coming from other external applications where we use connectors in order to retrieve that information or the APIs. I can in fact import an entire Excel sheet that I can get my records on this system of record. I'm going to share a few. Collecting some random records here. And here are my D pages. Let's look at them. And the 0 represents no references of these D pages yet. They're not being used anywhere across the application. Far is what it represents. Yes, here comes the underscore student. Earlier these were called declarative pages. They're part of declarative rules. When we created a data type, after that, when we clicked on that checkbox to create all the D pages also. After that, we got the screen where it was like that the database table mapping is done. Correct? Correct. And a report definition is created. Correct? But some days back when I was trying it, the database table was not created automatically. I had to create it. The database table mapping was done. I had to do it manually. It was not done automatically. The table was created. I had to go and create it in the DB first and then map it. Which version was it? Which version were you using? 0.5 only. 5 only. Now when you showed that the database table is created, I got confused. I mean, ideally by default, the system would create it for us for any data type. If you are configuring the source, it will create a table, a mapping rule. I mean, all these 6 entities are like standard. When you configure the source, these 6 would be created. When are you sure you configured the source or created a data type and then? I first created a data type, then I added properties in the data model. Oh, and then I did a configure source. Ideally, yes, it should have to create the table mapping and the report definition also. Because then I had to go and do the mapping also. The table mapping I did manually. Generally, the system takes care of the mapping rule and the table creation and all of that. Unless it is there in 8.5 as well. In earlier versions also, starting from the earlier versions, it was there. Maybe once I'll check again. Then we look at the page definition. The first thing that we see is the structure, which defines what kind of or how many entities are you looking at. Is it like are you just accessing a single entity or are you looking at multiple entities? That depending upon that, I can either choose a page or a list. This tells are you looking at accessing multiple records or just one record. Accordingly, we can choose the structure. Initially, the notion used to be like data pages are only for retrieval. But now, after we got the savable pages, I can also save the data back into the DB using my page. It's both retrieval and at the same time the write also. Both are possible. The read and write both. Then I have the object type. This tells what kind of information my data page is going to hold. Here we would give the page definition. It would be student data. It could be a data-employee, data-candidate, data-product. Anything which says what kind of data my page is going to hold. Then the important thing, yes, we have modes here. What says? How would you like to use your page? Is it just a read only, as in, are you looking at displaying something? All your FQs that you see on the screen or things like standard references or something. Those are typically the read only ones, which are only part of your display purpose. And if the mode is read only, I can see this D page, or I can see this page under the data pages category on the clipboard. On the clipboard, we have 4 different categories. If the mode is read only, you can see it under the data pages category of the clipboard. Whereas if it's editable, you can see it under the user pages category, where you are letting the user interact with it. It goes into the user pages category. And yes, the page can be edited here. You can edit. Then the last one is savable. If you use the savable D page, you can save the changes that you have made or the changes that you have brought directly into the D. For this, we would be using a separate shape. There's an entire different process of how you use a savable D page. There's a separate step called savable pages, and you use it, or you can also use it on the post processing of your flow action. If you have to add multiple save options, you can do that directly on the flow action. Anyways, we'll be looking into it. According to the data, what are you planning to do with the data? Is it just read only? Are you looking at editing it, or are you also looking at saving it? Accordingly, I can choose the words. Then we have got the scopes. How can I access this page? Or the changes that you made on the page should be reflected until which scope are defined on the scope here. First one is the thread scope, where each case instance we create is called as a thread. When your D page is related to a particular thread, the changes that you make on the Delhi page in the thread will not be applicable or will not be reflected on the other thread. That is when you use the scope called thread. It could be the same D page, but it would not reflect the changes made in one thread. They will not be reflected on the other thread, which means for each case it is going to be independent. Then we have got the scope called requestor. Requestor scopes when for the same operator, you see the changes made by the operator will be available or will be reflected in the rest of the transactions that he makes. For example, I think the standard example for this could be some count transactions a person makes. Suppose I log in into my banking account, I make a purchase or I make up some online transaction. That's considered a case. That's considered a thread. Now after the purchase, my balance will reduce. Some amount is debited. Now if I start one more transaction, I will see the reduced balance, not the original. Because even though the case is different, the scope is a requestor scope. My page will hold or will have the changes that I make in each case. It is reflected across all the transactions. The data here is more likely. It is associated to the operator. And then you have the node scope. Node scope is the highest scope where the changes made on the page will be available or will be reflected for all the users accessing the application. Just like book my ticket. The tickets, if I have to book and if they are part of my D page. And suppose I start booking a transaction for 2 seats. Now those 2 seats would be blocked for the other user. And if he wants to use it, he cannot. It says the seats are already blocked because the page is accessible by all the users. Imagine what happens if this seat booking page is of the thread scope. I can only book multiple tickets for the same seats again and again, because it is irrespective of my cases. On this scenario, my scope has to be definitely a node scope. It cannot even be thread also. No, it cannot be thread because I book a ticket. Probably I booked 2 seats. The next time I log in, I see those 2 seats are blocked and I can book some other tickets. But when other user logs in, he sees everything is empty because on his Requestor scope no seats are booked already. He sees every seat is available. For my scenario, thread scope is not going to work. Requestor is also not going to work. Only node scope works. This combination of the object type, mode and scopes will define how you are letting the users access your pages. They are very important. Even though we get a default one by the application, we can always go ahead and change it. In fact, we can create our own pages also with the specifications and the business requirements. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.